FSU's president says Seminoles will be very aggressive in conference realignment. Welcome to Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. This is an emergency episode of Peek Around the Corner as we need to discuss what Florida State's president said last night at the Tallahassee Chamber of Commerce, what have you. We're not expecting this. I think these are very impactful words because it was told by the president of Florida State. A school that is under the grant of rights in the ACC that lasts until 2036. So the question is, how could Florida State possibly be very aggressive in conference realignment? They really have no place to go. Before we get into what he says, let's just go over the AC school's predicament right now. They're in the grant of rights. Their media rights, each individual school in the ACC's media rights are owned by the ACC. ACC has them until 2036. So Florida State, and none of these, and the ACC is being underpaid. I mean, their media contract, is losing ground to the SEC in the Big Ten. In fact, the Big Ten is going to redo their contract again in 2030. The one that they just signed, that goes until 2030. So they get to re-up again. And the ACC schools are not re-upping with the ESPN until 2036. And they're already $30, $40, $50, $60 million a year behind every year. The athletic departments are falling backwards. They're not keeping up. They can't be competitive. You know, we're in this world of change where universities and or conferences are going to be doing direct payments to the student athletes. That's going to happen. That's part of this big change, the world of change. ACC can't possibly keep up under this new contract. That's why I talk about Notre Dame's predicament with their Olympic teams. But we're not talking Notre Dame this episode. We're talking Florida State. So Florida State knows that they're falling further and further behind SEC and Big Ten schools in the money game, which is becoming more and more important because of all the things we've talked about. Direct payments, conferences becoming bigger and stronger, making more of their own rules, going to be unlimited coaching staffs, more scholarships given out if you can afford it. And the ACC schools won't be able to afford all these changes the way it stands now. That's why these blue bloods in the ACC, Florida State, Clemson, Miami of Florida, Virginia, North Carolina, I'm telling you, these schools want out, or they want ESPN to come back to the table, one or the other. They can't survive this. But their grant of rights go all the way to 2036. And you can't Florida State just can't walk out of the ACC and say, please take me SEC. Please take me Big Ten. Because the ACC has the media rights. Let's say Florida State did that. Who would want them right now? Even though they're a great brand, great program, big fan base, they don't bring their media rights with them. If the Big Ten play, or if ESPN plays Florida State games, all that revenue, even if Florida State's not in the ACC, would still go to the ACC. You see, media companies give the money to the conferences. The conferences distribute the money per their bylaws. And Florida State walks out of the ACC right now, they would be a withdrawn member. They wouldn't get the money. And there's no way any ACC school can afford that. So they're stuck. They're stuck. All those schools are stuck. All 14 schools are stuck. Unless they want to give ACC a $500, $600 million check to get out of the grant of rights, to buy out of it. But even then, would ACC even take that money to dissolve that gore for that particular school? So there's really no way out for Florida State. Unless we bring up, once again, this crazy theory of dissolution of the entire ACC conference. Crazy, right? Crazy scenario. But why does this get brought up? I'm going to show you some examples here on this video. There must be schools here in the ACC who believe that they can dissolve this conference, and they're using this threat as leverage to ESPN to say, ESPN, you got to get back to the table. It has to be that, right? Well, let's just go. First of all, let's go through what Florida State President said, and let's analyze this, because there's really some compelling statements by the Florida State President, and then before him, statements from Louisville Athletic Director. Before him, North Carolina's Chancellor. Okay, so let's get what was said here Saturday, according to Dustin Lewis of No Game Day, Fan Nation. Okay, we're going to skip down here because we covered all why this is important. For the first time, Florida State's University President Richard McCullough commented on where the Seminoles stand in conference realignment. While speaking at the Tallahassee Chamber of Commerce conference on Saturday, McCullough said that Florida State will be very aggressive in its pursuit to remain competitive. It's something I'm spending a lot of time on, and we're getting a lot of help. We're trying to do anything we can to think about how we remain competitive. Florida State is expected to win. We're going to be very aggressive. Here in the tweet of the Tallahassee Chamber of Commerce, it says on FSU's conference affiliation, again, is something I'm spending a lot of time on, and we're getting a lot of help. So this question, this answer from the president of Florida State had to do in relation to Florida State's conference affiliation, which almost all of us believe there's nothing that they can do about it for at least a decade. Okay? But the president is saying we're trying to do anything we can think of about how to remain competitive. Florida State is expected to win. We're going to be very aggressive. This is the Florida State's president speaking, not just the Florida's athletic director, the Florida State's president. And we've talked about this before. It is important. Sports is not the mission of these universities, but it is the front porch of the university. It's the first thing that many students see. Not all, but many students see. It helps drive students to their campus. Remember, these universities are in competition with each other to bring in the best students possible to their university. So this is all tied in. This is all very important. We're going to go on with this, and then we're going to go back to what he says. McCullough's comments came in the aftermath of the Big Ten signing the largest media rights deal ever by a college athletic conference. On Thursday morning, the league announced it inked a deal with Fox, FS1, CBS, NBC, and Big Ten Network worth more than $8 billion for 7 years. According to The Athletic, the duration of the respective contracts mean the Big Ten will renegotiate its media rights deal again before the SEC's deal with the ESPN expires in 2034. Big Ten Commissioner Kevin Warren recently said that he could see the conference having 20 members in an interview with HBO Sports' Brian Gumbel. Even with the interest from the SEC and the Big Ten, Florida State is currently hamstrung, we just talked about this, by the ACC grant of rights, which isn't set to expire until 2036. In 2013, each president or chancellor signed a deal to surrender their respective schools' media rights to the ACC with the original expiration date of June 30, 2027. However, the agreement was extended 9 more years to 2036. It says 2016, but 2036 for the creation of that ACC network to get ESPN to invest in a conference network for the ACC, which has had some success. But man, it costs each university in the ACC to extend that grant of rights out another 9 years, which is really hamstringing them, which is killing them. Okay? Because the value of live sports content is growing and growing and growing every year. And Big Ten keeps making these shorter and shorter deals so they can keep re-upping, making more. SEC did the same thing, and ACC is being left behind. In this new world, right, we talked about it, direct payments of student athletes and all those other issues, ACC's really getting left in the dust, and Florida State's president is like, I'm doing everything I can for conference realignment, to help them in conference realignment, to get them realigned. One interesting hire to note from new athletic director of Florida State, Michael Alford, deputy athletic director of external operations. They hired Janine Lalick. In Lalick's hiring release, Alford noted that she had extensive experience in meeting negotiations and identification of revenue streams. Well, it's important, right? It's important that Florida State creates as much different revenue streams as possible because they're falling behind, and the price to compete at the highest levels is skyrocketing, and ACC is not keeping up. The conference payouts are not going to keep up to the SEC payouts and the Big Ten conference payouts. So Florida State has to internally try to figure out more and more different revenue streams. So that's a good hire for that. But really, those are just drops in the bucket, just little water drops in the bucket, right? Not going to make a whole heck of a lot of difference. The interesting part of this is Janine Lalick, according to the athletic director, Mike Alford, has extensive experience in media negotiations. Media negotiations. What does that mean? Individual schools don't have media negotiations with media partners. They do have negotiations with like their local radio show, right? That's part of Florida State's what we would call third tier income. You know, radio show, coaches show, local media revenue for the local shows. But usually you don't hire a person for that stuff. It sounds, media negotiations. That's very interesting. I'm wondering if she is part of this help that, we're going to go back to that statement, this help that the president of FSU is saying that we're getting a lot of help in this attempt to aggressively pursue conference realignment. I wonder if she is part of that. Here at the end of this article, it won't be easy to wrangle their way out of the grant of rights or the exit fee, and it's probably going to take some time either way. Regardless, it's certainly comforting that McAuliffe is confident enough to comment on Florida State's direction in conference realignment. The Seminoles seem prepared to take drastic measures to get back to the pinnacle of college football. Okay, so, the president is saying this. Florida State's president on Saturday is we're going to be very aggressive in conference realignment. He's sending out a message. Now, I'm going to show you a tweet here. If I can find it. Let's go back. This is Brett McMurphy of Action Network. And he's just killing it on reporting of this fast-moving realignment story nationwide. He's got so many connections. He does such a great job. He tweeted this out July 22nd. Okay? Big Ten Commissioner Kevin Warren told Action Network headquarters there are a handful of schools besides Notre Dame that would add value to the Big Ten. Sources said the other schools being considered by Big Ten: Oregon, Washington, Stanford, California, Miami, Florida, and Florida State. So Brett McMurphy sort of gave us a window to, Big Ten is evaluating Florida State, and according to their valuations, Florida State would add value to the Big Ten. Be it whatever variables you want to use. They're a big brand. They would be in the Southeast, great recruiting. Florida State is an emerging research university. They're not AAU. They're not a huge research university, but they're growing in size. Take all this into consideration. New markets for the Big Ten network, big fan base, big brand. Florida State is a brand multiplier when they play those Big Ten East schools of Rutgers and Maryland. Of course, the big games with Penn State. You can see Florida State adding value to the Big Ten. So Brett McMurphy already gave us a sort of a window that, Big Ten values what Florida State could give them. We've also had other reports that Florida State has called everybody in the ACC has called the Big Ten and SEC. We all know this. It's the grant of rights is the sticking point for these ACC schools to go forward. This is my. Let's go to another one before I attack this. Before I attack this dissolution question, which is on everybody's mind, the possible dissolution of the AACC. Okay, so this was, I brought this up before. This was in the Courier in Louisville, Kentucky. Tim Sullivan. This was part of the article that he wrote. Oh, let's see here. I want to get this right. Back in July 15th. Okay, July 15th. Tim Sullivan. And let's just go to the heart of the article here. First thing in the article is people know that the ACC is somewhat hamstrung. There's that hamstrung word again. And then perhaps in a weakened position because of the media contract we're being held to until 2036. University of North Carolina Chancellor Kevin, and I can't pronounce that last name. As you all know, I can't pronounce a lot of words and names. Said Monday in an interview with Chapel Hill's 97.9 radio. You see how he's using the same terminology? Hamstrung, and we just heard the Florida State president use that phrase. I'm just saying, okay? Seems like people are talking. Back channel, people are talking about, well, we'll get to it here in a second. And so that's what is leading to a lot of the speculations about schools looking to make a move. Yes, schools, they would love to get out of this grant of rights, out of the ACC if they possibly could, but you have that grant of rights. Here is University of Louisville Athletic Director Josh Heard. And excuse me if I pronounced that incorrectly. I want to get to the main point here. Let's get out of this for a second. So in that article, it also says, this is Heard, I think they understand that the ACC has to be extremely healthy for college athletics to be successful, Heard said of ESPN. And so I think they do feel an obligation to make sure that transpires. Not every decision, it's hard to believe, is based on the bottom line. At some point, we're going to need more than the SEC, the Big Ten, and 32 teams to make it viable. Okay, so basically, you've got the North Carolina's chancellor, Louisville's athletic director, saying basically ESPN has to do something here. They have to redo our contract. They have to bump it up because we can't remain competitive any longer. It's a position of we're gonna just not be competitive. Our value is gonna drop. ESPN's value is gonna drop. And here's the big point. Like UNC's chancellor, Heard is hopeful ESPN will see some advantage in revisiting a network-friendly rights deal, presumably to preserve a partnership that could collapse if a majority of ACC members were to vote to dissolve the conference as a means of circumventing the league grant of media rights and finding new homes. So there it is. There it is again. This Hurd, Louisville athletic director, in this article, basically saying either ACC comes back to us and gives us a better deal, or we could collapse this whole ACC conference and therefore the league grant of media rights completely disappear. This question of dissolution, where the ACC disappears, where there's 8 votes, 8 ACC schools voting to dissolve the conference. And therefore, if the conference dissolves, there is no conference to own the grant of rights. Therefore, schools will be free to go with their individual media rights. There's so many people, way smarter than me, who says, yeah, this can happen. This dissolution can happen. It would take 8 votes. There's also a whole heck of a lot of smart people who say, not true. Not true. Even if the conference dissolves, still those schools are somehow contractually obligated to provide content to the ESPN, to the deals they've already have. I don't know what is true. Again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a contract lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not the brightest bulb in the refrigerator. I do not know what the truth is. But again, if you look at this article in the Courier Journal in Kentucky, you can see that people inside the ACC has a perception that this conference could dissolve. And then you have if you read further with the North Carolina Chancellor, it seems like he is saying, yeah, I'm optimistic that a deal can be made, because if not, he doesn't really point it out as much as the Louisville athletic director. But then you have Florida State's president yesterday, saying we're going to be aggressive with conference realignment. Take a step back. How is Florida State going to be aggressive with conference realignment? How are they going to be aggressive? They can't be aggressive. There's no way. You can't get out of the grant of rights unless he believes that the conference can be dissolved by 8 votes. That's the only way. That's the only way. So you and I, we can all discuss, dissolution, it can happen. Dissolution can happen. But there are people in the ACC who believe it can happen. And I think, obviously, ESPN has received this message, right? They've received this message. They're reading the same stuff we are. So, dissolution, we're back to that again. With this, what Florida State is saying, what the Florida State president is saying, we're back to that again. I'm going to go back to the Florida State article, if you don't mind. Just 1 second. There's one more thing I want to point out. He says, it's something I'm spending a lot of time on, and we're getting a lot of help. Boy, some of you are rolling your eyes and say, Greg, you're doing this again. You get a few words, a sentence, and you start to drill into it. This is what I do with BTM. He gives me information. I drill into it. I flip it around. I say, what about this? What about that? I grill him. It's what you do. I want to drill into this, okay? By the way, if you like this content, hit the like button, share the video, do all that. Subscribe to this channel. But let's drill into this thing right now. This is, I think, important. Again, a question about conference realignment. The president says, it's something I'm spending a lot of time on, and we're getting a lot of help. It is that when he made that comment, it was August 20th, 2022, yesterday. The grant of rights is not until 2036. The president has spent a lot of time on this, on conference realignment. A good 10 years before he could possibly do anything anyways. They're not going to write a $500 million check for ACC just to say, well, we're not going to take it anyways, to get out of this grant of rights. It's something I'm spending a lot of time on, and we're getting a lot of help. We're getting a lot of help. Okay. Probably a lot of you are saying, well, that doesn't mean anything, Greg. I think it means a lot. We're getting a lot of help. I don't think that really has to do with the hire of the media negotiations person on the staff. A team of lawyers, does that mean we're getting a lot of help with the team of lawyers to challenge the grant of rights? Would the president be spending a lot of time on with the lawyers are going to come back and say, this is what you can do, A, B, C. You can write a check for $500 million, ACC could reject it. You can't write a check for $500 million. There's no way out of this grant of rights. I mean, there's only so much time you can spend on the grant of rights, like trying to get out of it. You've had your lawyers look at the ACC bylaws. You've had the lawyers look at the ACC grant of rights, which is two separate documents, and any other addendums with it. You can't just... it's something I'm spending a lot of time on. And we're getting a lot of help. I think we're getting a lot of help is sort of like saying the ball is being moved forward. To me, that's a little bit of a positive statement. Like, I'm talking to a lot of people. We're getting a lot of help. Again, it leads me, and please leave your comments down below this video. But it leads me to believe there's just this coordinated, this possible start of a coordinated effort where 8 ACC schools can go up to ESPN and say, pay up. We need more money. We cannot compete with the change of what is going on in this new world of college sports. We're going to have to pay our student athletes, just like the SEC and the Big Ten. We're not going to be able to recruit. We're not going to be able to help our facilities because all of our money is going to try to get into being able to pay the student athletes, all of our donation money. We cannot keep going like this. So that's what I have. We're getting a lot of help. Spending a lot of time. That to me, all that means there's some sort of effort of coordination. We have no intel on it. When this broke this morning, I read it, made the calls, checked it out. We've got no intel, but I kept coming back to this. Brett McMurphy's tweet about FSU being a school that Big Ten has said, according to their sources, they increase value. It's a school that Big Ten would be interested. And then you go back and, this is something I'm spending a lot of time on. Well, how much time? I mean, if it ain't about breaking the gore or paying out from the gore, what else could do? That doesn't take a lot of time. You know it. You know you can do it. You know you can't do it. And we're getting a lot of help. So he said this, the president of Florida State, not the athletic director. I think it means a lot. Please put down your comments down below. Tell me what you think. I do read the comments. I don't know. I'm still not a huge believer in the dissolution aspect to all this. But I think a lot of people in the ACC do believe that this is a leverage point with ESPN, that they could actually do this. Could there be 8 homes, ACC, 8 landing spots for the Big Ten and the SEC conference for these eight ACC schools to feel that they could leave and go to the SEC and the Big Ten? Is there 8 landing spots? Is there 6 landing spots and 2 others could go to the Big 12 with your mark in the Big 12? I don't know. I can come up with 6 ACC schools. I can't quite come up with the 8 for the landing spots of SEC in the Big 10. It's fascinating. I never thought I would talk about dissolution of the ACC, but I first talked about it about a month ago when the Louisville athletic director said what he had to say, and the North Carolina chancellor said what he had to say, and now yesterday the Florida State's president said we're going to be very aggressive in conference realignment. How do you be aggressive in conference realignment if it isn't the dissolution pathway? How do you spend a lot of time on it? How do you get a lot of help on it if it isn't about dissolution? Because you don't need all that when it comes to breaking the grant of rights. It's either a yes or no. Your lawyers know it by now if it's a yes or a no. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this episode. It was an emergency broadcast episode. We needed to do it for episode 18. It's about the ACC. It's about the grant of rights. It's about big brands being stuck in a bad contract that their current or most likely former university presidents signed on to. And it's killing their athletic programs. It's killing those great fan bases in the ACC. And this president feels confident enough to say it in public that they're aggressively pursuing all avenues in conference realignment to help the Florida State Seminoles athletic programs, and especially their football program. Until next time, all of us at Peek Around the Corner, we hope all of you, please, you all take care of each other. Thanks.